Greetings, fellow barbarians. It is I, Alan Odinson. You're listening to the Barbarian Lounge podcast. I want to thank you guys for joining me this week. I'm glad to be back on the air here. We took about a week off here. We had a lot of things going on with Thanksgiving and whatnot. Plus, I enjoyed my Thanksgiving by having a wonderful stomach virus, which I appreciated greatly. If there's anything to be thankful for, it's stomach cramps and all the other wonderful things that go along with having a stomach virus during Thanksgiving. But hey, what can I say? The networks that I talk about building all the time, let me just say that they provided during this time. My family had plans, and those plans were scrapped because it wasn't just I that was sick. It was actually most of the family was sick. But we had wonderful brothers in our network, brothers popping us off plates the day after, and we still ate good, and that's thankful to our network that we have built. So keep in mind, the things I talk about, the network building I talk about here, let me tell you guys, it's not just a bunch of talk. It's actually something that we've utilized and been building for quite a while, and thankfully they were there, so I'm definitely thankful for that network. But let's get a few things out of the way real quick before we get into some stuff here. I got several topics I want to talk about today. We're not just focused on one thing today because, let me tell you something, having a week off and keeping all this shit in my head, let me tell you something, I've got a lot to talk about today, and I cannot just limit things down to one topic today. Nope, the mind of Odinson is all over the place, and we are going there today, my friends. I'm going to open the doors to my own psychosis and allow you to step inside and hear what's going on in there today. So let's get a few things out of the way real quick. First off, if you haven't checked out our website, please check us out, thebarbarianlounge.com. You can find the feed there for all of our different shows. Our RSS feed is there. Also, we have some different stuff in our store. You can check out some of our t-shirts, as well as some of the items we have in there for sale. We've got some of the Mora knives, some EDC bags, a lot of different stuff in there. Go to the website and check that stuff out. Also, you can subscribe to our host website. That is thebarbarianlounge.podbean.com. Go there, give us a subscription. You can stay up to date, catch up on past shows, all that good stuff there. Also, you can become a member on our Patreon site. That's patreon.com/thebarbarianlounge. You can go there, donate $1 per episode. We do a maximum of 8 episodes per month. That's 4 regular episodes that we always do here that our listeners can hear all the time. You get those 4 episodes free, you get those ahead of everybody else, so you get those early, but you also get 4 exclusive episodes that are members-only content. And let me tell you something, my fellow barbarians. We get into some stuff on there. A lot of it, I try to keep it very educational on a lot of the things I've learned and pass on some of that knowledge to you. But let's just say a lot of the stuff I talk about on there, I do not want on the open airwaves. So please check us out there. Donate $1 an episode. That comes up to $8 a month, and it helps support this show and keep everything running smoothly here. It keeps the lights on, keeps the computers running, and keeps me well fed. Also, check out some of our sponsors. You can check out Odinson Archery at odinsonarchery.com. Traditional bows made from non-traditional products, or non-traditional materials. We've got a lot of different stuff on there. That we've got several new packs, some family packs, some arrow packs, a lot of stuff on there. If you've ever wanted to get into archery, which I highly suggest for everybody, archery just brings a lot of things together from a self-sufficiency standpoint, but as well as from a relaxation and zen standpoint. Plus, it's a great way to get yourself and your kids off the couch, outside, and doing something together as a strong family unit. I found for kids especially that have issues with attention, that ADD thing we hear about, and all these different things like that, I found that archery has been one of the better things with some of the kids I've helped, one of the better things to keep them focused and in line. You think about with archery, there's a lot of things that go into making a shot. There's a lot of focus. There's a lot of muscle control. There's so much that goes into it, and it helps these kids with very scattered minds, allows them to focus on something and see direct, immediate results. So please check it out, odinsonarchery.com. You can also check us out on ucy.tv Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. You can check out our show. There's a live chat that goes on. You can talk to other people while the show is airing and find your other fellow barbarians in your area. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of things right here. Take a sip of my unnamed drink because let's just say that one of my sponsors hasn't been quite living up to their end of the bargain. So this is an unnamed drink I'm drinking. It's rum. But anyway, every good pirate's got to have his rum, and everybody knows that I am the motherfucking pirate king of the South. So let's get into a few things. We're getting into Odinson's head today. We're going to talk about some things that have really been on my mind. And let's get into the first one here. The first thing, let's talk about Ohio State. No, we're not talking about Buckeye football. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the guy that went full muzzy there and decided to take his vehicle and plow it into a group of people, jump out with a butcher knife and start stabbing them in the name of Allah. So, I'm not going to mention it for very good reasons, because fuck that guy. I am sick and tired of seeing all of the media pandering to these incompatible cultures that are being shoved down our throats. I am sick of it. I'm sick of seeing these guys' names. I'm sick of seeing them blowing shit up. I'm sick of seeing them taking over businesses in American countries. I'm sick of seeing them get everything paid for them. I'm sick of seeing them come in here and invade and destroy this nation that we built. I'm sick of it. So I don't want to even mention this motherfucker's name. I'm sick of it. For the sake of conversation, we'll just call him, motherfucker Muslim. How about that? Okay? Motherfucker Muslim. So this guy, this Abdullah, whatever the fuck he is, he comes in to this country. Now, they let you know real quickly that this guy was a legal citizen and blah, 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 and all stuff like that. So that probably means that he had a visa of some sort. Apparently he was a student there at Ohio State. And, they was featured, for the sake of tolerance, of course, he was featured in the student newspaper. And in this newspaper, they said, he was quoted as saying, I'm very, I hate the image portrayed by Muslims, and I want people to realize that not all Muslims are bad, and we can be trusted, and blah, 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 and stuff like that. So, obviously, the best way to do that is to take your vehicle and plow it into people and start stabbing them and pledging your allegiance to ISIS. That's obviously the best way to prove to people that your so-called religion of peace is indeed that, a peaceful religion. I think he needs to really reevaluate exactly what he was saying there, because this is exactly what they do. This is precisely what they do. And I know people may be hearing this, not you guys, I know you guys are down with it, but some people may hear this and hear me say things like this, and they say, oh, now you can't lump all Muslims into one group and all this stuff like that. Really? I can't? Why don't you tell me this? How many other cultures are there, religions of peace out there amongst the world right now, that are chopping heads off, that are suicide bombing people, that are going into clubs shooting people up, that are driving their vehicles into groups of people, that are stealing trucks and driving them into groups of people? How many groups are those? How many different cultures out there, religious sects, if you will, how many of them are out there doing that? If you listen to the media, they'll tell you it's the alt-right. They'll tell you it's those evil white supremacists out there and the KKK, and everybody's walking around in fucking hoods. Let me tell you something. The only people in fucking hoods that are out there killing people are these fucking people in ninja suits walking around there with bombs strapped to them, walking into a place and blowing everybody up. These fucking Muslims that have come into this country, that have been let in here by our leaders, those are the ones that are out there doing this shit. Anyway, this particular gentleman, he was a Somali Muslim, and you're starting to find this as a growing trend. You're starting to see these Somalians brought in here. And some people may say, well, what's the big deal with that? Well, you see, these are the even worst kind of sleeper cells, because they're able to blend right in with most of the black communities, local black communities. It happens all over. I've seen where they've taken these Somali refugees. And let me tell you something. It's not an accident where they put these people. I've seen where they've taken these people and moved them into places like Wyoming, places like Montana, areas like that are predominantly white areas, rural areas ranchers and stuff like that, move them into these areas. Why do you suppose that is? Why do you suppose that is? Really think about it. If you really want these cultures to strive, you're going to move them into these places? No, it's about taking those areas that are predominantly white, and you know what? I have nothing wrong with areas that are predominantly a certain area or a certain type of ethnicity there. There are black areas, there are Hispanic areas, you have your Chinatowns, you have all these places like that. It's not like they say this race is not allowed there, but when you move an incompatible group of people into a predominantly white Christian area, what do you think is going to happen? There's going to be a massive culture shock on both sides. The only difference is one of those sides is violent. One of those sides will start stabbing people. One of those sides will start shooting people. So when the government, when the media and all of our leadership, when they start to fail us, what is there to do? What is there to do? And you know, the media narrative throughout this whole thing, I saw it kick off right at the get-go. They were like, oh, this guy said he was afraid to to pray in public. He was afraid that he was going to be discriminated against. And this whole idea was pushed that this poor guy, this poor man was driven to this horrible act of terrorism. Really? Is that where we're going now? You see, every single time that you have an attack from someone of Muslim origin that follows that religion, that is from that backwards corner of the world, every time that happens, the media is quick to jump on this poor Muzzy. Every single time. Because you see, the narrative right now, matter of fact, prior to this happening, CNN was on screen telling everybody how we should make Muslims feel more comfortable and women should start wearing a hijab. Yeah, they want your women to start wearing hijabs. Think about that for a minute. Think about that. That is not a people coming into this nation and assimilating to our culture. That is them coming here and saying, you become now like us. You know what that's called? That's called an invasion. That is called an invasion. And the media is behind this. The traitorous media. If there ever is a fucking revolution in this nation, the fucking media is one of the organizations that needs to get it first. Plain and simple. Hey, I'll pull the gloves off. Because that's a fact. This media has sold us out on so many different occasions. And they continuously do so. The investigative journalism, what the fuck is that? We're not even getting that from the alternative media anymore. Most of the time, the alternative media buys the narrative given to them from the mainstream media, and they'll ride with that. Sure, they'll change things to fit their own particular narrative, but when it comes to actual truth in media, we're not seeing that anymore. What you see is a mouthpiece of the government, and that is a dangerous, dangerous precedent. You know, and I saw it run while after this happened. They said, you know, how did this happen? Well, let's understand. We're trying to figure out a motive. What was the motive for this? The motive was it was a fucking Muslim who had pledged allegiance to ISIS, whose goal is to destroy the West. That's the motive. It doesn't take. I don't need to fucking call Sherlock Holmes and get him in here with his magnifying glass to figure this thing out. You don't need that. It's obvious. It's right on the tip of everybody's tongue. But you know what? You, and it may even be you who's listening to this right now, you have been made to think that you can't speak out. Because you don't want to be a bigot. You don't want to be a racist, right? Look at places like Sweden. I just saw we're in the UK right now that the number 2 most popular name there is Muhammad. Think about that. The whole EU is under an invasion right now. And they've been sold out by their people. They've been sold out by their leaders because they want you to believe that this globalist utopia, this massive multicultural utopia where everybody just hugs each other and sings kumbaya and everything's great, that actually is the way the world works. It's not. It's never been. Places fall apart because when you get people that do not understand a culture and you get these backwards thinking people that move into an area with a completely different culture, it's almost like a virus. It starts spreading. Other people start buying it, and before you know it, everybody's holding their tongue, and their culture completely dies. with not even a whimper. You know, I've always said one of the biggest dangers with the idea of revolution is what if you lose the revolution and nothing, like you never even fired a shot? And you can judge that however you will. I'm not necessarily talking about figurative or literal bullets. I'm talking about figurative bullets in a way of, just with your words. What if you never fired a shot because you stood down? You stood down while your culture was destroyed by these people who are allowed to come in here. As I said, you look at places like Sweden where it's a literal invasion. A literal invasion by these people that are coming in there, and they're not used to seeing beautiful blonde-haired women, white women in there, and these fucking Muslims are going in there and they're raping them, they're killing them, and the men are fucking standing down. Is that going to be our legacy? Is that going to be the legacy of the European people? To stand down and watch these invaders come in and destroy their nation? The same thing. Do not think the same thing can't happen here, because it's happening here. In my state of South Carolina, I witnessed where I saw they closed down a business in our local mall here. They closed down a business in the mall and replaced it with some New York fashion place. And you walk by there and all the women working there are Muslim ladies with hijabs on. Every one of them. Right here in South Carolina, the heart of the fucking South. The place that's always stood up for revolution. Even we are being assimilated. So, who's to blame for this influx? Who are the ones to blame? There's got to be somebody to blame, right? First thing I would say is blame yourselves. Blame yourselves for being quiet. Blame yourselves for letting this happen, because you did. You didn't stand up. You didn't go down and demand your leaders. The people as a whole did not demand for their leaders to change things. They didn't do that. They stood down because they were afraid of being called a name. You're going to let your culture, let your people die just because you don't want to be called a name? But you can also take a look at some of these church services, these church groups. The Catholic Church service is one of the worst. I'll say it straight up, guys. One of the worst. I've talked about them before. I posted articles. These are some of the people that actually that facilitate these people coming here. And yes, they're under contract by the federal government. If you don't believe me, look it up. They're contracted. Separation of church and state, right? They're contracted by the federal government to bring in these refugees and settle them in your town. They get money given to them. They get health care given to them. They get a house given to them. They get jobs given to them. I know for a fact that Governor Nikki Haley, that's right, bitch, I'm calling you out, Governor Nikki Haley, who has just recently been announced to Trump's as UN, UN spokesperson or some shit like that? Good, get her the hell out of this state. Trump's already making South Carolina great again by getting Nikki Haley out of here. But Nikki Haley give jobs, preferential treatment, state jobs to the refugees that were settled here. Yes, you won't find that in the paper, but I have sources inside the state, I'll just leave it at that, who have confirmed that. They called me the day of and said, "You're not going to believe this, Odinson." Guess what I heard? I was there, I heard it. So, look at your leadership. Look at these church groups. These Catholic church services. Check them out. Look all this shit up. I'm not just talking out my ass here. Look it up. Look it up. These people need to be confronted. You know what? I may end up eventually, and I'll post it when I do, actually call in some of these groups and ask them why they're traitors to America. Why they betrayed their nation. Why they betrayed their people. Why they betrayed their faith. Do you think but I ask you, do you think that these people are going to come in here and assimilate to your way of life? That's not the way this game is played. That's not the way it's played. So you betrayed your faith, you betrayed your people, you betrayed your state, you betrayed your nation. But the worst part is that we're allowing it. So what do we do about this? How do we stop these terrorist attacks from happening? Well, there's several things you can do. First off, you need to carry your fucking gun. You need to be trained with it, and you need to have your mindset in line. So just like this guy that wanted to jump out with a knife, there was a cop there. Luckily, there was an officer there who was responding to a different call. He put a bullet in this guy and put him down. And I tell you, my fellow barbarians, keep your weapons close to you, keep them armed, keep them ready, and be ready to fight, because on that day that it happens, hopefully you're there and you're able to put down this fucking savage. Show them a little bit of American hospitality. If you're in the South, show them some Southern hospitality and put fucking 3 in them. So that's one thing you can do, for sure, to stop such things. But another thing I tell people with all of these things, vote with your dollars. Vote with your dollars. Do not support these businesses where these people operate. If you see these people at gas stations and shit like that, and I'm not talking about Indians, please do not get that confused. But hey, I've got a little bit of issue with that, if I'm being honest with you. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later on a different show. But, support, vote with your dollars. Don't support these businesses. Don't buy from them. Don't shop with them. Don't recommend anybody go there. One of the reasons these businesses tend to flourish is because they are allowed to be there, and they get as long as they're making money, they're going to stay there. They're just going to stay there. Put some flyers out around your area. Inform people of who are located in their town. A lot of people don't know. They don't have a clue. There's a lot of people in Florence, right here in South Carolina. They have no idea there's a mosque in town. They have no clue. Run by, guess what? Somali Muslims. Also, let me tell you something. When these people do attack, crush them. Fucking crush them. You need to make their ability to function around here hampered. They need to get scowls. They need to get battle. And now Odinson, all Muslims aren't bad. Now we can't treat everybody bad. Yes, there comes a point where you have to. You just have to. Is it profiling? Yes. Profiling is a survival mechanism. When I'm walking around and I see 3 dogs out there and 2 of them are sitting and one of them's got his teeth snarling at me, I can't say, well, all dogs aren't bad, but that guy right there, yep, I think he's going to be a problem. There comes a time where you just have to pull the gloves off. You got to tell these people they're not welcome. They have to understand that they're not welcome. They need to be met with scowls. They need to be stared at. When you got people walking around with burqas and fucking hijabs on, you need to understand that's not American culture. That's a symbol of oppression. You supposedly came here to be free, but you're walking around with a submission symbol? The American people really need to understand the threat that is at the gate. And it is at the gates. It is absolutely at the gates. And until we're willing to recognize that threat, you're not ever gonna fix it. This thing cannot be fixed until you're willing to stand up and look at that threat in the face. People tell me all the time, have sympathy for this group, that group. No, I don't have enough sympathy to spare, because right now, as it stands, my people need me. Your people need you. Plain and simple. And we know who our people are. We know who they are. And no, I'm not just talking about white people. Okay? So don't go ahead and throw that label here. That's not what I'm talking about. You know who your people are. I know who my people are. And let me tell you something. They know who their people are too. And when the chips are down, that's where they're going to go. Those people brought here from another country, they are not your people. They are not here to be Americans. They're not here to be a member of your state. That's not what they are. They are infiltrators, they are invaders, and they are here to change your culture. And until we're willing to say that, nothing's ever going to change. So let's talk another topic that's on my mind here. I get fired up talking about that last one because it has absolutely just been mind-boggling to me where, I saw this lady who said, this guy, he was not a terrorist. He was a Buckeye, and he was one of us, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you something, lady. You may want to believe that. He was not one of you. He never was one of you. I don't care what legal documentation he had. He's not one of you. Until people are willing to realize that these guys, they're not one of you. They're not here to be one of us. They're just not. Because when the chips are down, you always see which side they go to. So let's talk about this other topic I've got on my mind here. The topic of what I term as revolutionary LARPers. Revolutionary LARPers. Well, as I've talked about before, I've been involved off and on with militia movements since the early 90s. As a child, most kids grew up watching cartoons. I spent my Saturday mornings training with local militia groups with my father. True story. When we play hide and go seek, it was actually in the dark, and he was using night vision trying to find me. He'd say, "Son, go hide, and I'll come find you," and that's how we played. So this is the type of childhood I had, learning how to do all kind of interesting things that I'm sure certain alphabet agencies would not be happy about. Oh, and if you're listening, alphabet agencies, hi, how you doing? Hope you're having a good day, and I hope the audio is clear for you. So, revolutionary LARPers. I saw this a lot during the militia years, but I've also seen it a lot recently. And how I term a revolutionary LARPer is someone who is, for lack of a better term, their whole idea of revolution is based off of a completely unrealistic goal. Completely unrealistic goal. And they keep telling us on and on again about how they're going to do this, and once we do this, this is the type of world we'll live in, blah, blah, blah. But their actual goal and what they plan on doing to create this world is completely unrealistic. It's not going to happen. It's just not. So one of the problems I have with a lot of these groups, one of the big ones is, with these unrealistic goals, they'll say things like, well, our plan is to get rid of all the black people and all the Mexicans, and it's going to be a lily-white America. Let me tell you something, guys. That's not going to happen. It's not. It is not going to happen. Okay? Would you want it to happen? I've got some people I consider brothers who are black. I've got some people who I consider brothers who are Asian. I've got some people, not that I consider brothers, but that are close to me, that I know, who are good people, good, hard-working, upstanding American people, who are Hispanic. I don't want to see them go anywhere. You're not going to see them go anywhere. This whole idea that you're going to remove this group and everything's going to be, that's complete and utter horse shit. Complete horse shit. It's total nonsense. And anybody who adheres to that philosophy is completely unrealistic in what they see a revolution as being. I see one of the problems I've always had that I say is a problem for sure with the alt-right is so many small groups who are in the alt-right. There's so much division. There's no unity. No one's really together. No one's on the same page. And that's a big problem. That's a big problem in the long run. And you have groups that they're like, oh, we want a fascist society. I don't want a fascist society. And then we got other groups that are Southern nationalists. We got traditional workers. We've got there's so many groups. I lose count of them all. White nationalists. Then you've got black nationalists. Black Panthers and all these communist groups. You've got all these different groups, and of course they're not the alt-right, but communists they're not considered alt-right. But you've got all these different groups that have this goal of creating this unrealistic world. And I can just tell you, it's not going to happen. There's only one way. Let me say this. I can't say it's not going to happen. Let me take a sip here. I can't say it's not going to happen. What I'm going to tell you is the only way it's ever going to happen is through a massive war. And keep in mind, all these groups I'm talking about are small groups. And these groups are under the assumption they're going to have a massive war. They're going to defeat all of their enemies, including the well-armed United States military. And then this new world will be created. No, you're not going to do that. I don't care how well you think you've got shit planned out, because at the top of the food chain, and that's the federal government and the United States military, at the top of the food chain, they have unlimited resources, unlimited money, unlimited supplies, unlimited ammunition, and they will always have more of that than you do. Now, could you carry out a guerrilla war? Well, yeah, but still, at the end of the day, let's be realistic. And I'm going to jump towards those people who I tell you what, I will flip it back, and I'll even talk about a group I associate with and a group whom I do like their ideals. I'm going to talk a bit about the some of the ideas I hear from people as it relates to Southern nationalism. With Southern nationalism, I am of the belief I would love to see the reestablishment of a confederacy, a true confederacy. If you don't understand what a true confederacy is, I would tell you to listen to some of my past shows and research some of that material. I would love to see that again. Is it going to happen? No, it's not. And the reason I say that, I have said before that the South is compromised. The old South is compromised. Virginia, which was once the capital of the South, it went blue, mostly because of areas like D.C., so that's a big bellwether right there. North Carolina almost went blue. South Carolina, for the first time ever, almost went blue. Georgia was close. So you have to understand that these old symbols of the South and the South rising again, man, I have all the respect for the Confederacy. My family almost died in it, and if you've listened to my show, you know that I am a true rebel Confederate at heart. However, I also understand the limitations of the reestablishment of a South, of the Old South. From a logistic standpoint, there's just not enough. There's not enough people who are willing to do that. Your best bet will be to build a new South that's starting in a smaller area that is not compromised. And I have some opinions about that I'll keep to myself. But at the end of the day, let's be honest, guys. My fellow Southern nationalist brothers that are out there, let's be honest. Do you really, truly think you can reestablish the Old South by removing all of the people who are associated with, because let's be honest, the reason most of these areas are compromised is because they're not people like me who, my family goes all the way back to the founding of this state. They're not true Southerners. Most of the people that are here now. You're not going to remove all those people. I know people who are that I would say I'm close to, and they're Yankees. They just are. They would fall into the category of a Yankee. But I don't want to see them removed. They're my friends. You understand? So, and I would say they've somewhat assimilated to Southern culture, but there's a lot of people who have not. And what I'm getting at is this whole idea that we can just recreate this Southern nation. I do not believe it can happen. I just don't. From a logistic standpoint, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe these are things we can discuss. I'd love to hear opinions on it, but I do not think it can happen. I do believe that the better bet is a new South, and that is what it is. But a lot of times, we see the same thing too with a lot of these groups. These, the black nationalists, some of the white nationalist groups and I'm mostly talking about, when I say this, I'm talking about past the whole idea of most white nationalists. They're just for European people. They're not about eradicating some race or anything like that. But when you move to the hard, like neo-Nazi type groups of people, those guys, this whole idea of, we're going to have a cleansing of the races, and it's just going to be, you're full of shit. You're full of shit to believe that is ever going to happen. Okay? I mean, I'm sorry, white supremacist guys. I'm sorry for you, but it's just not going to happen. The same for you, you black supremacists and your Nation of Islam guys and all stuff like that. If you really truly think you're going to get rid of all the white people, good luck with that. The only way you can ever achieve that is playing the long game. And with a long game of that means we're bred out of existence. And let me tell you something, Europeans, if that happens, you're to blame for that. Okay? It's the old idiocracy paradigm where we've got intelligent people who can carry on the fire of their people who are just refusing to procreate. It's like the saying from Fight Club where he says, I want to put a bullet in the head of every panda. I think it was every panda or koala. I want to put a bullet in every one of their heads that refuses to mate. You're killing your own fucking people. So that's the only way anything like that's ever going to happen. But I just get, personally, I get sick and tired of listening to revolutionary LARPers talk about how they're going to do this and do that, but they're not doing anything but talking shit on Facebook. That's it. That's all you're doing. You're not training. I mean, let's be honest. Who are your crew? Who are the people you run with? What is their background? Are they trained? Are they truly capable of carrying these things out? From a logistics standpoint, do they really have a chance to do this? In a lot of these groups, man, they talk all this shit, and then they run into a federal infiltrator who comes rolling in, and you get this Fed that rolls in, and then this guy comes in and starts saying things like, hey, I probably know where you can get some dynamite. Then you get one of these morons in the group that says, oh, really? Oh, that sounds good. And they're like, yeah, let me get you some dynamite. And before you know it, people are arrested, and then you're plastered all over TV and all this stuff like that. And it goes for the same people that talk about actually overthrowing the government. There's a lot of revolutionary LARPing in that. There's a lot of it. And I even think that a lot of people who who fight this war on the front of just spreading information, this supposedly information war, I even think those people fall into the category of a revolutionary LARPer. There's no skin in the game for them. It's just, we're talking and we're doing this and we're waking people up. And you're not going to wake people up on the grand scale, okay? And a lot of people will point to the Trump presidency and say, oh, well, look, there's a fine example of waking people up. No, Trump appealed to a lot of people on a lot of different levels. And Hillary Clinton, in a lot of ways, was just a fucking bad choice across the board. But you get a lot of federal infiltration from these revolutionary LARPers, these guys that talk about how they're going to do this to the government, do that to the government. Now, I will say this. If you are not a revolutionary LARPer, you know it. I know individuals, and I'll just leave it at individuals. I know individuals who definitely do not fall into the category of a revolutionary LARPer. They definitely do not, and I would definitely not talk about them. So alphabet agencies, you probably already know who they are, but it is what it is. So let's be serious for a second though. When it comes to actually being a revolutionary, I mean, what is the best way? What is the best way to truly become a revolutionary? And get away from this whole LARPing idea of, oh, we're going to talk about how we're going to do this and how we're going to do that and all this stuff like that. But they really never have no plans. They never do any training. They never actually put any skin in the game. What is the best way to really truly be a revolutionary? First thing, the revolution starts at home. Start cleaning up your community. When you're out walking, and it could be little things. When you're out walking around, when you're out, maybe you're walking your dogs with your wife and your kids or whatever, and you see some trash laying on the ground, pick that shit up. Start cleaning up your community. If you've got drug dealers hanging out on the corners, run them the fuck off. Call the cops on them. Expose what they're doing. That's one of the things. I've had some friends who are involved with the RLSH movement, which is the real life superhero movement. Some of those guys are kind of weird, but there are some guys that are actually doing some fucking work. They put their lives on the line, and some people have different opinions about them. I can tell you, from my standpoint, I respect them. I respect them for willing to get out there and do something in their fucking community. Most people just bitch about what's going on in their community, and nobody really is willing to go out there and put their lives on the line. These guys go out there a lot of times in costume, and some people laugh at the costumes, but I actually understand the reasoning behind it. The whole reason behind the costume is to draw attention to what they're doing. And if you draw attention to what you're doing, you draw attention to the bad guys, you draw attention all across the board, and that is actually a phenomenal thing when it comes to trying to draw attention to the bad shit that's going on in your communities. Now, some of them fall into the category of charity, and they give shit out to the homeless people and everything. That's not cleaning up your community. That's enabling the trash in your community. I am not a fan of feeding the homeless and all these things like that. I'm just not. That's not what I'm about. I've tried to do shit like that in the past, and I've seen exactly what it leads to. You do not feed strays because strays keep coming around. And I know for some people that sounds really, really harsh, but that's just the reality of the situation. But start cleaning up your community. A lot of people try and focus on things way too big, way bigger than themselves, and the things that they're actually capable of doing. But at the end of the day, you think about it, if everybody in their community makes the choice to start cleaning up their community, before you know it, you've spread to your county, then you've spread to your region, then you've spread to your state, and then it goes so forth and so on. I was just talking about the RLSH movement, but I always term it as to the superhero analogy. What I mean by that is, you think about your superheroes. Batman does not try to save the world. The Green Arrow does not try and save the whole world, and neither does Superman, all these things like that. No. Batman takes care of Gotham. The Green Arrow takes care of Starling City. Superman takes care of Metropolis, and so forth and so on. So you understand what I'm getting at there. With the whole superhero analogy, they take care of their town, and slowly, the more there are superheroes spread out throughout the world, well, each little city becomes clean. They take out the trash. The bad guys are gone. That leads to what? A prosperous community. So the first thing you can start doing to be a revolutionary, start cleaning up your community. Make it nicer. Beautify your home. Clean up the trash that's there. And I'm talking about the trash on the ground and the trash that sleeps on the street. Okay? And I know that's a harsh reality for a lot of people, but it is what it is. Expose the criminals that are there. Expose corruption on a town level. Run for office in your town. If you really want to start changing shit, do that. And through this, we can start building something new. We can start building a new society. We can start building a better land for our people, for your friends, for your family, for your brothers, for your folk, all these things. Now, there's this idea that a true revolution is going to be he who has the most guns is the one who ends up actually making the world better. That's not necessarily the case. Sure, you need guns, because the guns give you the ability to actually fortify your position. Okay, they've always said that the Second Amendment always enables the First Amendment, because without the Second, there can be no First. Because people know if they try and infringe on your First, guess what? The Second Amendment's there, and now you've closed the dialogue off. Now we can't have freedom of speech. Now we can't talk. Well, guess what? The next words coming out of our mouth are going to be fire. All right? So those are ways, we need to start getting out of this whole idea of this whole revolutionary LARP movement, where we're thinking about this stuff on the grand scale, but we're not willing to clean up our community. We're not willing to change what's around us, change what is there, and rebuild anew. If you're living in a shitty area, start working on ways. What can you do to make it better? Okay? If you know there's a crack house on the corner, why is it there? If you know you've got a heroin dealer that's in your town dealing heroin and killing people, why is he still walking the streets? Literally and figuratively. Why is that? So we need to start thinking about that. We need to start moving on. Get off the keyboard. Get off the fucking computer. Put an earbud in if you want to listen to this show, and get out. Get out in your community. Start talking to people. Start changing what's around you. Change the place you live. You'd be amazed what you can do. You can be amazed what you can do in your area. So I'm going to talk about this last thing, the last little thing that's on my mind here, and I wasn't actually going to talk about this, but I just saw it actually come up on the news feed, and I wanted to cover it real quick. I want to talk about the rioting left. Okay, just recently in Charlotte, up there, they had the cop who was charged with the Keith Scott shooting. He was actually found to be innocent of that. No charges are going to be filed because he shot a man who was armed with a gun, provable that he had a gun, would not drop the gun after being told to drop the gun, and the cop dropped him instead. And, of course, as you know, Charlotte burned. So, now the police are on standby because they're expecting riots because this cop doing his job, shot a man with a gun and who was a criminal. That's the facts of the case, okay? That's the facts, folks. So now they're concerned about rioting, and that's something we've seen from the left lately. They've taken this temper tantrum baby mentality to where they just start blaming everybody, and they want to, instead of, as I talked about in the last segment there, about rebuilding their community, no, they want to tear it down. They want to destroy, okay? And let me tell you something. When this thing happens, and I've seen the tweets that are out right now, when they're expecting riots, because Charlotte's already burned once, there's a good chance it's going to again. But what are these tweets calling for? So from the tweets I've seen out, where are they telling them to go? Where are they telling them to actually go and riot? Are they telling them to go and burn down their own communities? Well, they're going to do that anyway. They'll probably bust some windows in and steal some things and TVs and hair extensions and all these wonderful things like that. But no, these tweets are calling for them to go into white neighborhoods and start attacking white people, burning down those neighborhoods. What kind of world are we living in? What kind of world are we living in when the cops doing their job is going to result in white people getting attacked? I mean, you're just looking for somebody to blame, right? That's what we have to do, right? That's what we have to, that's obviously what they believe they have to do. That's what they've been told. And, you've got these groups out there, and this is why I've been saying for a long time that the BLM, the Black Lives Matter, those groups should be considered a terrorist organization because that's what they're telling these people to do. They're telling them to commit domestic terrorism. And, we've seen this across the board. We saw it last time when Charlotte burned, which I'll be honest with you, when Charlotte burned, that was a shock to me. I was not expecting to see that. Honestly, I think I grossly underestimated exactly what type of people are in Charlotte now. I guess I obviously did. But we've seen this happen when this whole thing kicked off. I remember seeing the video of the white guy in the parking garage getting beaten to a pulp, just getting beaten down, and it something that's considered that, without a doubt, is considered an obvious hate crime. But, was it carried on CNN? No. If that had been reversed, it had been a group of white dudes attacking a black guy, oh, that would have been all over CNN, MSNBC, front page, everything like that. Racist attack in Charlotte. But you have to understand, the whole media narrative is creating this idea of this victimized culture that in turn, through their portrayed victimhood, is now attacking their supposed oppressor. These people are getting attacked. These white communities, they're not the ones oppressing people. They're the ones out there, in a lot of cases, a lot of them are low-income families who are actually just doing barely enough to get by. A lot of those are the guys who are paying the taxes, who are actually supporting those people who are on food stamps, and a lot of these low-income families. Those are the communities that are actually doing that. Those are the communities providing jobs. But we've seen this from the left, and I don't want to make this just a whole thing talking about BLM, this whole thing that's going on with Charlotte, but we've seen this with the left ever since the Trump win in November. What have we seen? Riots. We've seen crying and boo-hooing and actual people on the street taking a shit in the middle of the street on Donald Trump signs and then smearing it with their hands like there's some kind of psychopath that deserves to be in some sort of a mental hospital. That's what people do in padded rooms, you know. So this is the mentality behind the left. We've seen communists on the streets, communists wearing communist flags, waving communist flags with bandanas with the hammer and sickle on it, walking around with guns, telling people that, oh, you need to start bowing down and everything, and we need to start making people afraid. And don't you understand where this leads, guys? Don't you understand that you cannot get away with this forever? But one of the things that they're utilizing, which is, again, going right back to my criticism that I have with some of the alt-right, is the communists, the social justice warriors, the BLM, all these groups, guess what? They're a united front. They know who they want to go after. Every single one of them know who they want to go after. This is why I've been saying that the alt-right needs to get their shit together. They need to get their shit together because, like I said, they know who they're fighting. Right now, the alt-right is gnawing at each other. They're gnawing at each other. Oh, well, you believe this, and I believe that, and I'm a Christian, you're a heathen, and this guy's Jewish, and this guy's white, and this guy's mixed, and this guy's gay, and all this shit like that. And throughout this whole bickering, over little aspects of your ideology, you're not all focused at the enemy. We can sort that shit out after the battle's over. But right now, let me tell you something. That's a united front across from us. And the alt-right is not united by any circumstances. And they're going to keep doing this. They're going to keep doing it. These riots are going to continue to happen. People are going to get attacked. And it's creating this environment where it's a powder keg. And once that match hits it, it's going to go up, and it's going to go up fast. You know, I've talked about before, if we live in a world where a cop who is, law enforcement officer, carrying a gun, fully within his right to do what he did in that situation, if that cop is going to be demonized for that, how does that portray to the average citizen? Let's say it's me, my firearm, and I shoot him. By law, I'm supposed to stand there and I'm supposed to wait for the cops to get there. Where's my guarantee of safety? You know what? Depending on the area, those people may eat me alive before the cops get there. They may rip me to shreds. I may get shot standing there waiting on the cops to respond. So where does my level of safety come into play here? I can't leave. If I leave the scene, guess what? I've left the scene of a shooting, and that's not going to do me too well. That's almost an admission of guilt in a way. So we're reaching this point where, as my good buddy Master Chim talks about, this whole idea of winter is coming. And it's very close. We're at the point right now where we need to ask ourselves, at what point do we fight back? There's not a lot of people out there talking about fighting right now. Yeah, they use little words about it, but I'm saying it straight up. At what point do we fight back? At what point do communities start to unite, even as a community? At what point do the groups that say, you know what, you can't lump all of us together because we're not like them, yet those same groups are not willing to stand up and side with groups that are being attacked? Why are there not black groups out there who do not support what these people are doing to the communities in the area? Where are those black groups, and why are they not standing next to these white communities and saying, no, you do not attack them? Let me tell you something. If somebody's not willing to do that, well, there's a word for that. It's called an enemy. They're your enemy. If they're not willing to stand next to you, then that means they're not going to stand, that they consider you not part of them, right? I mean, that's what they're saying. That's what they're saying in this situation. They're not willing to stand there and say, look, you guys are taking this too far. You need to stop. It's enough of this. If they're not willing to do that, there's a problem. That means they're not on your side. As me and my good friend, we always say that, when the time comes, you won't have to pick sides. They'll pick it for you. And that's the absolute truth of the situation. It's the same when I was talking about earlier with the Muslim communities. The Muslim communities, they'll say, don't lump us all together. We're not all like them. But yet, where are they? Where are they standing up and condemning these radical jihadis? Where are they at? They're not there. There's a problem. Maybe there's the community, the massive community says, oh, we're not all like that. But it's like, okay, well, then why don't you speak out against it? Oh, I can't do that. They'll attack me. Well, okay, so that tells me that you're a coward for one, and you still are willing to stand down as we get destroyed. That's not part of our culture. And it's the same with these groups, these fucking communists, these social justice warriors, BLM, all these groups out there rioting, all this stuff like that. If you're not one of them and you don't stand for that sort of thing, then you need to stand on the opposite side and at least create a barrier and say, look, that's enough. That's not what we stand for. But you don't do that, do you? Instead, you just sit back and tweet. Or you sit back and post shit on Facebook. Where are you on the ground? Where are you on the ground doing things? But I asked the question, at what point? At what point are we going to have to fight back? And I'm of the opinion that these communities in Charlotte, I know there's a contingent of people there who don't stand for things like this. Where are they at? Where are they at? Why are they not there? Why are they not willing to get out there and stand up? Stand up for their people. You can't sit on the sidelines forever. You can't. There has to be a front. There has to be a united front that says no more. That says you will not be allowed to do this. When you got these communists coming out in your cities and doing demonstrations and stuff like that, there needs to be a front there. When people go to these and host these events, such as like MPI or any other events like this, Augustus Invictus is running into shit like this, where you have Antifa show up, guess what? There needs to be a front there of people says, you know what? We're not here. We're not here for any other reason than to say that if any of you Antifa, if any of you touch us, we're going to crush you. Plain and simple. That needs to be their job. It needs to be a bunch of big bearded burly motherfuckers that say no more. We're not going to harm anybody. We're not going to touch a soul. You can yell and scream all you want to, but if you touch us, we crush you. Plain and simple. Okay? You know, I wish I could remember the quote from Malcolm X, where it's words to the effect of, you know, be polite. Be polite. Don't hurt anybody. Don't attack anybody. Blah blah blah. Be cordial and everything. But if they touch you, you put them in the morgue. And that's pretty much the level we're at. Because these groups, these Antifa, these communist groups, these SJWs, all these guys, these BLM, the reason they do what they do is because nobody has fought back yet. But I'm just going to tell you groups, if any of you people are listening or you know anybody and you send them this show, you tell them I said this. We haven't started fighting back yet. And when it happens, let me tell you, I don't think it's going to play out like you think it is. It's not going to be pretty. People are going to get hurt. And let me just say, the people on this side of the wagon, the people that are standing on this side of that line, they're not going to tolerate it. And when they put you down, it's going to be bad. You're not going to like it. It's not going to be as glorious as you think it is. Your names will be forgotten throughout history. And I pity you when that time does come. I hope that there comes a moment where you realize, and I think it'll happen. It'll probably happen right before it kicks off, that you realize what a big fucking mistake you made when you thought you were going to impose your will on our people forever. Plain and simple, these people need to be crushed. And you know, everybody says, you know, oh, well, we don't need to do anything, and we need to have the moral high ground, yada, yada, yada. Let me tell you something. It doesn't matter how it plays out. You're always going to be the bad guy. If you're not willing to be the bad guy, don't even play the game. Okay? There's always an antagonist and a protagonist, and that is decided by whomever reports it. When the Traditional Workers' Party got attacked by Antifa and were being beaten with metal poles, what got reported? There was 100 plus Antifa attacking like 20 trad worker guys and hitting them with steel poles. What got reported? That a couple of Antifa got stabbed because people were defending their lives. That's what got reported. They were stabbed by these white supremacists, and they were just carrying out a counter demonstration. Watch the video and see what that actually looked like, okay? So, there's no moral high ground here. This whole concept of having a moral high ground, that's bullshit. That's bullshit that's created after the fact. The fact of the matter is, you're going to be the bad guy. And so now, fellow barbarians, the lounge is closed.